Hey folks, October's wrapping up. My computer here just a little bit, which means November's about to kick off. I'm finishing up less strong than I wanted to with some of my October readathons, but that's okay because I had some near the end of the month. I had some chances to arc some books, which is always fun to do. So I got a little sidetracked from my reading challenges with that, but I'm still going to finish fairly well. I still got another couple of books in the works. I also have one that I'm trying to get arced and reviewed by a deadline. I'm doing a couple of readathons in November. One of them is a bingo form for tracking your reading. So I do have books picked out for every prompt. We'll see how far I get. I also intentionally picked out some that I know will be quick reads. There's a couple longer ones, but a lot of them will be quick to get through. Because I'm going to have spurts of really busy and then spurts of lots of downtime. So I'm going to have this weird days where I won't get a lot of time to read, and other days where I'll have more time than I'll know what to do with, and lots of time to read. So we'll just kind of see how that all plays out in the end. But I'm going to get started. The two readathons I'm taking part of, sorry, trying to get my iPad to open. The two readathons I'm taking part in for November, one of them is just called the Thankful-a-thon, and it's really short. There's like 2, 4, 6, 7 prompts. Really simple. That one I should be able to kill, no problem. The other one is a One Tree Hill readathon. I have started slowly working my way through that series. I have a daughter who loved it. I'm not what you would call binge watching it yet, but I am working my way through it, and we'll probably spend some time over the holidays trying to get through quite a bit of it. But there's a bingo readathon set up with prompts for each of the characters from that show, and 3 alternate prompts that you could, I think, if I understood the rules right, you can sub in for one of your bingo spots, or just if you get all the other ones read these ones too. So I'm just going to jump in and let you know. I'm going to go through the Thankful-a-thon real quick, and most of these also show up in the One Tree Hill readathon. Not all of them, but most of them do. For the Thankful-a-thon, one of the things you're supposed to read is a book from a series you're thankful for. Capturing the Devil by Carrie Maniscalco is the 4th and final book in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. Strong female main character going after real-life killers in a fictionalized setting. Jack the Ripper, the descendants of Count Dracula. The third mystery involved a trip on a cruise ship with her uncle and the love of her life that involved Houdini. And now Capturing the Devil actually is a reference to a character who has been known as the Devil in the White City, H.H. Holmes, who had the murder house during the Chicago World's Fair. So that's the devil in Capturing the Devil. I'm excited to read this. It's the 4th and final book in the Audrey Rose series. I'm so excited to see how this all wraps up. The second prompt in the Thankful-a-thon is something with a fall color on the cover. They want seasonal here. And I'm trying to get back through this author's books in order because I hadn't read anything for a while, and so I'm kind of out of the loop. So I'm trying to refresh my brain. Cruel and Unusual by Patricia Cornwell. Obviously the gold and kind of the orangey red of the it's a weird color on there, but I'm going with this one as my fall color. Winter color. I associate winter with Christmas, obviously, quite first, and of course, technically February is in winter as well, so Valentine's Day. This is a book I'm actually arcing. I arced the first one and loved it. Sort of urban paranormal, almost. Well, it's paranormal fantasy set in the real world. It's not really urban so much as it is just real world paranormal. This is the second book in the series, The Fergus She, Master of Madhouse. Is the second book in the Fergus She series. I loved the first one, absolutely loved it. Got a chance to review it and share the review with the author on Twitter. So I'm excited to read the second one. I have a chance to arc that one too, so I'm super excited to get that one done. Spring color on the cover, green, but the book is hardly springy. It's called House by Ted Dekker and Frank Peretti. I had hoped to get to this one as a part of an October readathon, and I'm not going to get it done by the end of October, so I'm just going to bounce it over into the Thankful-a-thon. It's a book I've read before. It's actually, I'd read Frank Peretti for years, found him in high school, and it's actually the book that introduced me to Ted Dekker's writing. I was familiar enough with Peretti's that I could see the parts of the book that I looked at and went, Peretti doesn't usually write like this. That's where I knew Dekker had tucked in. And so this is actually the book that introduced me to Ted Dekker's writing, and I've become a huge fan of his, arced a couple of his recently. So I'm excited to reread that one. A summer color I'm kind of going with the yellowish on this one, and this is another series I've been working on called The Emperor's Visions, Tales of Celadia Book 4 by R.A. Denny. Love this series, love, love, love it. I think there's 5 or 6 books. Book 3 left us with war breaking out. And that's it. Like, war starts, and then the book is done, and you're like, wait. So I'm excited to jump back into this. Diverse characters. I've had this one for a while, picked it up with a gift card that I got, The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. I'm excited to read this one. I've heard really good things about it. It's been on my TBR for a while. Sorry, my books are falling over. It's been on my TBR for a while, and I just haven't had a chance to get to it yet. So I'm going to make that one a priority this month. Last but not least, TV or movie adaptation. This one I've actually seen the DVD movie version of it. Visitation, also by Frank Peretti. Apparently, I'm on a kick by certain authors. I have the same authors showing up more than once in these readathons. So that's a Thankful of Fun. Done and over. Quick and out. Just those 7 books. So on to the One Tree Hill readathon, which is a bingo readathon. So each of the characters has a bingo spot on a card. You fill up the bingos, etc. There are 3 minor characters, I guess, that they used from what I know of the show, who are alternates, so you can sub those in for one of the bingo spots if you're not going to get to that bingo spot. Right now, there's only 1 prompt I don't have a book for, but that's because I'm kind of spontaneous when it comes to that genre. I'll just pick something on the fly. So for Lucas, the call was to read a classic, Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes. It's been on my TBR all year long. One of the year-long reading challenges I'm doing calls for you to read a book that we got a classic phrase or idiom from. And of course, if you know anything at all about Don Quixote, the phrase tilting at windmills, fighting a battle that's really not worth fighting, or fighting a battle that's really not a battle. That phrase comes from the book Don Quixote, so that one's been on my TBR all year. Hopefully I'll get it done in November. For sports, I'm going to read, this author actually, I believe he came to senior high to speak. He came to the school that I work at to speak to students. This book is actually, from everything I've been able to find, only available in ebook, and my library does have access to it. So November 1st is going to involve a trip to the library. The Crossover by Kwame Alexander, new author on the scene who's getting a lot of attention. And like I said, I'll be getting this as an ebook from my library. You know, they have the ebook, and from everything I've seen online, this is the first of a series, but the first book is only available as an ebook from everything I've been able to find. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my resources online were wrong, but I know my library has the ebook to download. For Peyton, you needed a book that involved a musical character. Concerto is the second book in a series. I read the first one already. The main female character is a violinist who was a child prodigy, and at 18 began touring. So she graduated high school. Just after the summer ended, she starts touring. It's a love story. It's a sappy love story, but the main character is a violinist. I have a few love stories thrown in here, romances thrown into this, because those are books I can breeze through pretty quickly. They don't require a whole lot of thought. So they're books I can get done on my checklist, finished pretty quickly. For Brooke, you needed a book with a strong female character. So I'm going back to Patricia Cornwell. Her main character is a woman who is both a medical examiner. She's a forensic specialist and a lawyer, much like the author herself, because, one major career degree isn't enough. No, I'm sorry, Cruel and Unusual, which I already showed you. I'm reading that one again. That one will do double duty for the strong female main character. For Haley in the One Tree Hill romance, and again, this is one I have a chance to arc for the author. Highlander's Untamed Bride. Got this one from the author. And again, sappy romance. You can tell by the cover. It's not the deepest plot twists in the world, but I have read other stuff by her. And if you like Scottish romances in that era of history, they're fun reads. For Jake, you're supposed to read a book that involves a single parent. This is an author I love, but it's a series I've never delved into of hers. I've read, everything that's available right now of her main series, and then another one I'm like 1 book away from reading everything that she has. There's another one I read, her Lizzie and Diesel series. I've read everything. Janet Ivanovich, who I love. Again, real easy reads. Her books are those that if I have a day to read, I can blow a whole novel in a day. But they're fun, and her characters are lovable. She has a series it's called the full series of first book of the series is entitled Full House. It involves a single parent. So that's the one I'm jumping. And I've always wanted to read this series, but I've been working my way through her other books, and so now this one sounds like the perfect time to launch. For the One Tree Hill, Antoine, people of a person of color, so The Hate You Give will feel that. reading prompt. For Marvin, you're supposed to read a book set in a small town. This is actually a faith-based book called Walking Shoes. It intrigues me because the main character is a pastor's wife. Hi, just like me. And the shoes, I mean, can we talk about? I have a thing for shoes. Can we talk about how cute those shoes are? Okay, so it takes place in a small town. It's the pastor's wife in a small town and her experiences. It'll feel a little biographical for me, but that's okay. So that's my small town book. Karen, the book is Comfort. And again, I'm going back. Comfort could go a lot of ways. It could go with a favorite book. It could go with a book from childhood. I'm going back to an author that I love. I'm going back to an author who, if I just want a book that I know I'm going to sit down and enjoy, I grab this author. And it's the most recent. I shouldn't say final. I don't know that the series is done. It's the most recent in her Fox and O'Hare series, The Big Kahuna by Janet Ivanovich. It's a Fox and O'Hare novel. It's, I think, the newest of her series. And I absolutely love the character. So I know I'll enjoy the book, which is why I used it for the comfort prompt. For Keith in the One Tree Hill Readathon, you need to read a book about brothers. I'm going to go classic on this one. Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Like I said, a lot of the books I've picked are quick reads. Some of them are not, but I know my library's got a lot of the ones that I need. For Chris, you're supposed to read a poetry book. That's the one prompt I don't have filled because I'll go to the poetry section in my library and just impulsively pick something. That's how I do poetry. I love poetry. I absolutely love to read it. I love to write it. But I'm very impulsive when it comes to how I read it. So I don't very often choose a book ahead of time when there's a poetry prompt. I just kind of go, I pick you. For the Overhyped book, for Rachel's character, the Overhyped book, and I get in trouble for saying this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I've had this one on my TBR all year long, specifically because one of the prompts in the year-long readathon I'm doing is a book that everybody loves that you think is overhyped. So please don't hate me, but this is where I go. The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. So that'll be my overhyped book for Rachel's prompt. For Nanny, you need a domestic thriller, which I'm going to use Master of Madhouse for that. It takes place in the 80s, even though there are supernatural characters involved. For Dan, you need a horror book, which again, I'm going to pull House out because it's a scary book, even though it's the one I'm reading for the spring color. It's kind of creepy and scary. Ian is a psychological thriller, and I'm using Visitation for that one, so there's some doubling up here. Chicklet for Millicent is At First Sight. Cute little Christian romance book by Joy Ohagu. Again, a romance book is one of those that's quick to get through, quick to read. There's not usually a lot of unexpected plot twists. You kind of know the outcome when you get into the book, and that's okay. For Julian, I'm going back again to the Emperor's Fantasy, or the Emperor's Visions, because it's supposed to be a fantasy book, so we'll go back to the Emperor's Visions. That'll take care of the fantasy. Clay is a group of friends, and I'm taking some liberties with this one. I'm going back to Patricia Cornwell again, because Patricia tends to work with the same group of people all the time. She has a police detective she works with, an FBI agent. At this point in the books that she's working with, eventually she and that FBI agent will become romantically involved, but right now they're just friends. So it's the same group of people that she works with all the time. So I'm loosely translating a group of friends and using Patricia Cornwell's book, The Body Farm. Like I said, I'm trying to work through those books to get caught up again. A middle grade or a book under 2019 TBR. This one is on my 2019 TBR by Marie Lu. It's called Warcross. A girl hacks her way into a virtual reality RPG, and instead of getting in trouble, she gets hired by the company to try to stop a hacker who's trying to ruin the game or trying to kill people or something. I don't know the full details yet, but Warcross has been on my TBR all year. Again, for one of those year-long readathons, a book involving a game, because it's a virtual RPG, virtual reality RPG. So that one I will be reading for Jamie. For Quinn, you want a book involving travel. This one I actually know someone who is a friend with the author, and I've had it on my TBR all year. I just haven't gotten to it. Dust McCallum in The Heart of the Serpent. Obviously involves travel. He's an adventurer, sort of a la Indiana Jones style. So he obviously travels. The three alternate prompts for the One Tree Hill are Alex, which is a gorgeous cover. And again, I just love these covers. So for me, this works. The Capturing the Devil by Carrie Maniscalco. I think those are great covers. The LGBTQ prompt for Anna. I'm going back and restarting a series that my kids got me interested in. I think they read most of it. I've only read one or two books. But I'm going to go back and I'm going to hit up City of Bones and maybe work my way through Cassandra Clary's series. And finally, for Quentin, you're supposed to read something short. The prompt said he just wasn't on the show long enough. So it's supposed to be something short or something that will be tear-jerking. Every year, once a year, somewhere in November and December, I reread A Christmas Carol. I read it every year. The really funny thing is I had a really cute blue leather-bound copy of it that vanished. I don't know where it went. My guess is one of my daughters borrowed it and just never returned it. I got a chance to visit London this past June, and we went to the Charles Dickens Museum in London, which is housed in a home where he did live for a time. And while we were there, of course, I'm a huge Dickens fan. And I mentioned that my book had come up missing. So I actually got to purchase this from the Charles Dickens Museum in London. Yes, I'm that nerd. So get over it. And I got all excited because there's actually a picture in the back and it says Dickens Museum right there. So I always, like I said, I always every year reread it. It's a really, people don't realize I'm very, very picky about movie adaptations of A Christmas Carol because it's very short. The other version I had, the book was a little bit taller, and it was like 96 pages. Even as short as small as this book is, I mean, you can see how tiny it is. It's only 156 pages. And the print's not necessarily terribly small, if you can see that. So it's a quick read. It's a short read. It is Dickens, so the text is very prolific. The text is very specific and detailed and things like that. But I reread it every year anyway. It's a tradition for me to reread Dickens' A Christmas Carol somewhere in November, December anyway. So this is the perfect way for me to do my annual book reading, my annual reading of this book, and still include it in a readathon. So that's where I am. The Ivanovich books, the romances, those will all be real quick reads. I know. Don Quixote, The Brothers Karamazov, those are going to be a little longer. Patricia Cornwell's books don't take me a terribly long time to read, so I think I could actually do pretty well with the One Tree Hill readathon. Like I said, I've got a couple of weekends here that are going to be kind of crazy busy. I have solo contests coming up with my Color Guard girls this weekend on Friday, and then I'm playing for a bunch of choir students at a regional competition on Saturday and possibly Sunday if some of them go on to the finals. And then next Thursday, hubby and I hit the road with the equipment trailer for the marching band and orchestra trip to Washington, D.C. So that'll be kind of a packed weekend. But then the weekend after that, I got nothing. So, like I said, it's either feast or famine as far as busyness goes with my weekends. So I will have a lot of time on the weekends to read. And with marching band season being done, some of my evening hours are freed up as well. So that's where we stand. I will get this posted. When I post this on YouTube, I'll have the links to the two readathons. And they're most, if you don't know, if you're new to the whole readathon idea, most of them tend to be run on Twitter. Although Instagram also gets a lot of love and YouTube gets a lot of love with update videos and things like that. So, but I tend to find all of them on Twitter. So that's where I'll send you if you want more information on these readathons and how to take part. But otherwise, comment below with the books that you're reading and tell me what your favorite read so far has been in 2019.